We're going to talk about our divorces. So enchanting, guys.
Yeah. Buckle up.
There's a lot of taboo to the subject.
I got married at 19 and then married again within a year after the first divorce.
It's like once is bad enough and then twice is like my heart
like major
hurts for you.
For both of you, when did you kind of come to the realization where you're like, this ain't it? What were some of the signs leading up to it?
I hung on to the relationship for so long and tried so hard to like make it work because I didn't want to get divorced.
I cannot convey enough how emotional abuse and neglect can cut so much deeper than even actually physical violence.
Absolutely.
Hey, you guys. Welcome back to the Hey Girl, Hey podcast. I'm your host, Kay.
And I'm Lori.
And we're here with our very special guest and my sweet friend, Natalie.
Hey everybody.
Y'all, we
Welcome
just
back.
love having her here. She's awesome.
Back
and
again.
Thank you. Yes, thank you so much. 3P. We love it. What is some enchantment that happened this past week?
Okay, this is going to sound incredibly silly, but I don't drink enough water ever.
Bro,
I relate.
I never ever do. And I was telling my coworker about it for months now. I've been telling her, and she's like, you need to get like a cup, like a good cup that you would want to like drink out of. And I was like, okay. And so I've been looking at like different Stanleys and like that kind of thing. And I was showing my boyfriend, I was like, oh, I think I'm going to get this one or whatever. And then there was one at my door. She sent me one. She mailed me one.
Your coworker?
Wait, so she chose one for you?
Yeah, she just sent me one.
so
She was like
sweet.
telling me that she was like, expect something at your door. And I was like, I thought maybe something was coming to me because my work anniversary is next week. So I was like, maybe that's what it is. That was the last thing that I thought.
Cute.
Opened the box and it was literally the one that I was looking at.
What a good
online.
friend.
What
I
the
was like,
heck?
Girl. Yeah.
Oh, it was
I'm
the
shout
one you
out-
were looking
shout
at
out Vanessa.
online?
Yeah.
Dang.
Shout out Vanessa.
She knows me, I guess. So yeah, it was very sweet. It really made me happy.
Yeah, that's how you accomplish goals. Whenever you're not good about doing it, you have to make it a vibe.
Yeah, for
I was
sure.
just about to say that, like, you know, the water tastes so much better in a nice cup.
In a nice cup, absolutely. Agreed. Yeah. So now I've been carrying that thing around with me. I've drank more water in the last like 2 days than I have probably in months. So
Yeah.
here we go.
Love that
You
for
look cute carrying it around. So.
What about you guys?
So this week, I saw a little kid, 10-year-old kid that looked just like Brandon did when he was 10, when he was a little kid, like just from the pictures and family videos I've seen of him.
Cute.
And yeah, I saw him and immediately I like double took and I'm like, wait, that literally looks like Brandon's pictures. And he was the cutest kid ever. So it made me baby hungry. And now I'm like,
No.
we need to have
Baby fever is real.
It is real. Sheesh.
That's awesome. Dude, you came a long way with that. Like, I remember. No,
Like a
literally.
180 flip.
No, for real.
Yeah.
Like, I feel, and maybe some women can relate, but like, just like the thought of pregnancy, that's such a huge life stage change.
Yes.
Especially like having somebody inside you. I still don't fully understand that.
I still struggle with the
makes me a little
pregnancy
anxious,
part.
yeah.
No, for real, yeah.
Yeah. Like I still struggle with like knowing that my body is going to change and like never be
Yeah.
the same again.
Yeah.
But I also just really crave a family.
Yeah.
So
I feel like the ending in mind helps you in wrapping your
100%.
brain around pregnancy.
yeah.
But yeah, that's awesome. I'm so happy for you.
And you?
Oh man, y'all, I just had my. Oh yeah. Oh my gosh, I just lost it. I was gonna say I just had it and then now I lost it, but we're back, y'all.
She
We're
found
back.
it.
Okay. Y'all, I've been having this Amazon addiction. Specifically buying way too many things. Like I will literally wake up in the morning. This is kind of insane, but I will wake up, you know, go to the bathroom, whatever, do my morning thing. I'll be in the shower and I'll take my phone with me and I'll literally just start online shopping in the shower.
That's a whole different level.
In
But
the
I was
shower,
about to say, I
that's-
feel like everyone has the Amazon addiction.
But in the shower,
in the
it's crazy.
shower, that is crazy.
That's when you know you have a
don't-
problem.
No,
That's
I
psychotic.
definitely, y'all, this is my confession.
Yeah.
And we're no longer doing that. So in September, after I get back from Hawaii, I'm going on a no-buy month. And I might honestly do it up until October. And then November, you know, there's Black Friday, holiday shopping.
Not just
So
necessary.
maybe,
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah, maybe it'll be good for me to like obviously save money, but to prepare for the holiday season.
Yeah.
Which, saying that out loud, sorry.
I'm like, how is it September? Or
How is
like
it
September?
almost basically.
Y'all.
Or halfway through August.
I'm
No,
so
it
excited.
feels like that.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's insane.
Insane.
This year's flying by.
It always does, babe.
Man.
Every year it gets worse and worse. I feel like it gets faster and faster.
No,
I'm like,
for
I don't
real.
want to be old.
No.
Yeah.
But honestly.
But actually,
But we are.
don't say that.
It is what it is.
Oh, man. I'm like, speaking of.
Speaking of being old. Yeah.
There's no way to segue into this. Well, I guess,
Weak.
Lori, do you want to take the reins on this?
Oh, man.
Oof.
Yeah.
No.
This is an episode we've been wanting to film for a long time.
Yeah,
Yes.
but I've been having to get my, not courage up, but like, it's a topic that you have to be prepared for, and like, it's like the right setting. And Natalie is the perfect guest to have on for this.
Yeah, thanks.
So this episode, we're going to talk about our divorces.
Yep.
Like so enchanting, guys.
Yeah. Buckle up.
Oh man.
I'm sorry.
Oh gosh. I'm not gonna lie. I don't even know like where to begin
No,
with
I don't
it.
either. I'm like, where do we start? I don't know what to unpack.
So post-divorce, pre-divorce, dating. Like
I guess we start, like, when did you get divorced?
Girl, which time?
Oh,
that's
wait. Well, before we
Back
hop
up,
in,
back up.
ladies,
Yeah.
before we hop in, I do want to say, like, you guys are so brave for wanting to talk about this, and I
Yeah.
know a lot of not even women, but just people, like, I'm sure men can relate, for people that have been through this too. But this topic is so important, especially in our life stage. Like, I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of people, when they do talk about divorce, they're in their 40s, 50s, and kind of that demographic. But I've
Yeah.
never seen conversations with people in their 20s where it's just like, hey, you don't go into marriage thinking like, I'm going to get a divorce.
100%.
Never.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like there's a lot of taboo to the subject. But honestly, there's a lot of people that go through the same thing you guys have been through.
100%. And that's the thing, is like, I just never expected to be a divorcee as part of my life story. I never expected that to be a label put on me.
Yeah.
And I was so resistant. Like, there's a point in your marriage, like whenever the marriage is no longer working or the relationship isn't a wholesome one, where you're like, you have that sobering thought where you're like, man, it's no longer just like, man, I'm unhappy and I'm so mad at him, or, this and that. It's, man, this is not working.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so resistant to that thought for such a long time, because I was like, no, absolutely not. I am not going to be a divorcee. And I mean, I think that a lot of people know this about me, but I know that there are a lot of people I'm close to that do not know that I am twice divorced. And that's why it's been such a shameful thing, because like you said, yes, there are a lot of people that are divorced and then like twice divorced, like, but it's more like in their 40s, I feel. And I was twice divorced by 24.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't know with that. Like, I don't know if you knew that about me.
No,
but-
I did. I knew you had been divorced once, but I didn't know twice. But I mean, like, things happen, It's like things like that we don't plan for. So it's, I really feel your pain with that, because it's like once is bad enough, and then twice is like my heart
Like major
hurts for you.
failure. Yeah.
it's tough. It's a really hard thing to experience.
I don't know how old you were when you first got married, but like, this is why I was thinking about this when I was editing the last episode. Something I should expound on, and is why I'm so passionate about saying, like, I do not advocate people in their early 20s getting married. That is a hot take. I know that that's just not a one size fits all, because there are plenty of couples out there that get married very young and they are happy as can be. Yeah. Like my sister, my mom and dad got married when they were literally 17 and 19.
Wow.
But for me, it did not work out. So I will say that, like, that's, whenever I give that advice, that's coming from my experience.
Yeah.
And that's why, for me, I think that that's why I did get divorced, is because I was just so like, I wanted to get married. I didn't date very long, and I got married. Yeah, I got married at 19.
Okay.
And then married again within a year after the first divorce.
I do understand where you're coming from with getting married or engaged at a young age. I mean, it maybe for me it's not, but it's like I felt young at the time. I was 21 when I got engaged, and then married by 23. We had only been dating though for a year before we got married. So I'm with you on the hot take of not getting married at a young age. And I do see that like a lot of people are getting married like younger and younger now, and it seems to work. Like, I don't know, I feel like I see that online a lot, maybe on TikTok or Instagram or whatever, but people are getting married, I feel like, pretty young. And like you said, it does work for people, and I love that for you.
Yeah.
But for me, I guess that just
Not relatable.
wasn't really the case. Because I think, like, how can I say this? I think the thing is like, if you can find somebody that is going to grow with you through the changes of life, it'll work, right? But you also don't really know. It's like, I guess from my experience, it was that I feel like we grew apart, but it's like that wasn't planned, but it was like as we got older, we just went in like different directions instead of like growing closer. So it's like, if you can find somebody that is going to grow with you through the changes, then wonderful. But like, again, you can't predict that.
Exactly.
Because it's like, you have those conversations, we're going to be together forever. We're going to do this, that, and whatever. But then it's like, in reality, it's like, that's not always the case. That was my experience, at least. I don't know.
No,
I agree.
A good point. I guess for both of you, when did you kind of come to the realization where you're like, man, this ain't it? Well, and also, so two things. When did you realize like, man, this isn't it? And then kind of what you're touching on, Natalie, like when did you kind of see you guys grow apart, or if you can relate as well? I guess like what were some of the signs leading up to it where you're just like, oh, wow, like how did we get here? In hindsight, you can look back and be like, oh, maybe we stopped doing date nights, or maybe we stopped connecting, or I guess like how did you guys like come to that realization?
I was not expecting to have like actual like reaction like as you're asking. I'm like, I'm feeling like,
and it's okay. Yeah. Again, if you guys don't feel comfortable with any sort of
for
things,
sure.
like but also like this is hard, and we don't have to hide the fact that this topic is hard either. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you want to answer or?
Yeah, I'm like, what's interesting for me, and I don't know if this is your experience at all with getting divorced, but I feel like part of me, our whole relationship is like a blur. Like, and I don't know if it was like just that I had a lot of like traumatic things going on all at once when we did get divorced, or like when we did separate. So I feel like I have a hard time kind of like recalling like all of the things that happened until I like really sit down and like hone in on it. So I'm like, it might take me a minute to like get going here. But when did I kind of notice? I feel like there were things on both ends, my end and his, that were not conducive in building a relationship. But we, even though these things were happening or had happened, we decided to continue on. But I think in reality, maybe at that point we should have said, maybe this is time. But instead, we, even after these things took place, we were still married for like 3 to 4 years after that. And then it came to a point where it was like we just completely went on different paths.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of came down to it that like we had the conversation, and I said, listen, I don't know what we're doing here, but this has become toxic. Like, I can't continue on. Like, either like we get a divorce, or like we go to counseling or something, right? I was like, I was willing to still like put in the work, but then he was just like, I just want to be done. And so that was kind of it. And we separated then. That was like December of 2020. And then by July maybe of like 2022 is like when we actually got divorced. But the thing is, when I tell people that, they're like, oh, divorce is such a long drawn out process, like that's must have, and I'm like, that's not what it was. Actually, like, I think I hung on to the relationship for so long and tried so hard to like make it work because I didn't want to get divorced. That it wasn't until like around that time, like in theory it was very fast. It was super fast. Like I was divorced within a few months of filing. So it was really like I just held on to it for way too long for, I don't want to say no reason.
Well, it's hard to
but
let go.
yeah.
And no, it's not for no reason. It's like, it shows that you, I'm assuming, cared. Like,
For
and
sure.
That's how I was too.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's one thing that any divorcee would want others that have not walked this road to know is like, I feel like with me and my experience, a lot of people from the outside looking in were like, like, are you dumb? Like, why aren't you leaving this guy? Because from the first guy, I left him for domestic violence reasons. And like, I should have left him as soon as the first thing happened, but I didn't, because like, you know, you want it to work. Like, you love the person, and like, it's a sad thing to really like finally throw in the towel. So I don't know. I felt like I was getting a lot of like criticism because people wanted to see me like get out of it. But unless you're in the relationship and you know, like, you understand the gravity of that situation, like, if I leave, like, I'm never gonna see them again. I'm not gonna wake up to them again. Like, they're gonna move on and date someone else, and like, you know, I'm gonna see that on social media. Like, you know, I'm not gonna, even things like, I'm not gonna be a part of his family anymore, and he's not gonna be a part of my family. There's just so many thoughts that go through your mind.
For sure.
I understand, like, it's not like you know that it's over and then you're just out the next month or whatever. Like, sometimes it just takes a really, really long time.
Here's the thing though, and like, I feel like what you bring up like a good point, because it's like people have this idea of like divorce and are like, oh, you know, divorce once, divorce twice, you know, whatever it is. But it's like, only you lived that. Only I lived that. Like, and who is somebody else to say, like, and have judgment over that? Like, if it, no matter what the reason is, but especially domestic violence, like, absolutely get out of that. So it's like, there should be no shame, you know, in theory, no shame from that. But yet, from my experience at least, it's like, I know I experienced a lot of shame, like from divorce. So it's like, I understand what you mean, but in reality, it's like, there should be no shame around getting out of a relationship that is abusive to you.
Right. Yeah. And then even like emotionally abusive, like, like I've not met a single person that heard about my first divorce and like the reasons for that and was like, oh, you should have stayed, you could have made it work out. Like, I mean, maybe like one or two people, but like, those are very old fashioned mindsets. But like, you know, the vast majority of people were like, yeah, you should absolutely, you were justified in getting out of that marriage. But the second one, like, that divorce was, and that relationship was the one that like left real emotional scars. And like, there was no physical violence.
Sure.
But again, like, it's interesting that then people have their opinions like, oh, well, you could have made it work. Like, you know, did you try X, Y, and Z and all this stuff? And it's like, shoot, man, like, I cannot convey enough how much emotional abuse and neglect can cut so much deeper than even actually physical violence.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, if you don't walk that road and like, if you're not in that person's shoes, you just won't understand.
Never.
And I feel like, wow, you guys, first of all, thank you for opening
heavy stuff on this couch right now.
No, but man, no, I think this topic is so important because, again, people should never put shame on any other person's situation if they have no idea what they're going through, especially if they've never been through marriage and have never walked that path and how hard it is.
Yeah.
And also, just you guys are the only ones that you were in the situation. So no one else has license to talk. And I love kind of what you're touching on is the neglect. And I feel like that's also just based off our conversations, Natalie, is what you experienced as well. Just one person, you know, if marriage is something you both carry together and one person just completely gives up on it, that's not on you to carry that whole marriage, on anyone. Like
100%.
Nobody's strong enough to do that.
No.
Like when you're making a vow and marriage is so sacred on those vows, and literally, like when you think about what you're saying, like in sickness or in health, for better or for worse.
Right.
And when things are tough and they, you know, fold under or whatever, and it's just complete neglect, nobody can judge what you guys are going through in that situation.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, you're not upholding those vows. And like how you were saying, that can leave scars that are just as bad as physical ones. So
100%.
Yeah.
I remember being so embarrassed about the second divorce. Like the first divorce, honestly, I didn't feel that deep shame.
Yeah.
And I think it's because I had so much support to get out of the relationship. Everyone wanted me out of that relationship. And then I also want to be sensitive because I'm not here to like throw stones at my exes. And I think that that's another reason why I've been apprehensive, like opening up about this, because there are people in my life from them that I do care about, that care about them, you know? So I want to be sensitive, but also like, this is my story.
Yeah, that's
and
your
this
experience.
is what happened to me. Exactly.
Right.
So my first ex is actually dead, and he was shot by the cops. Yeah. So, I mean, that's another story, but like, that's like, and he brought it upon himself, you know what I mean? So like, that's kind of the level of character that I was married to, and it was scary. Like I really do have like scary stories that I don't even know if I told you about. Did I tell you about the Mexico thing?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Well,
literally, you just opened up to me that you were 2 times divorced like 6 months ago. I was like, wait, what? I had no idea. And obviously, it does not matter. But also, like, you know, as we continue on our friendship, there's stuff I've opened up about you like a couple of years ago too, that it's like, okay, now I can trust this person.
Yeah.
But it does help bring more context to who you are, because your experiences shape you. And it's like, you know, oh, why does Lori hate on getting married so young? Like, why is that a thing? Why is she like willing to die on that hill? Oh, it's because of
this is why.
what she's been
For valid reasons. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So back to what I was saying, I feel like yeah, that first marriage, that first divorce, there was a lot of support to get out of that marriage. But the second one, that's where things were a little bit more like, you know, who's right here, who's wrong, whose side should we take? Was it Lori's fault? Was it his fault? Like, and that's where for me the shame came, because like I feel like in the first divorce it was kind of like black and white, like why the marriage had to end. But for the second one, like people were free to draw up their own opinions, and some people's opinions, I'm sure, were it was my fault, you know. But I mean, I'll say like I tried everything humanly possible to make that marriage work. Like, and I've touched on this in the podcast before, like the lengths I went to keep him happy, and like the masculine roles I took on and all that stuff. So that is a glimpse into what that marriage was like. But anyway, so whenever I started dating again, I remember being at the point with Brandon where I was like, okay, I need to tell him a bit about my history. I need to tell him I'm a divorcee. And so, I mean, I had to really work up the courage to tell him.
When was this in like your dating timeline with him? Like, was this like first date, third date, already when you guys were boyfriend and girlfriend?
It was whenever we established that we were boyfriend and girlfriend, but that was only like 2 weeks in. So at that point I was like, okay, I'm his girlfriend, I need to tell him. And maybe in hindsight the better thing would have been to just like, you know, tell him the first date or second date, like, and I'm sure some people do that, but I was not at that point where I was like, you know,
and you guys
I held
were
those
moving fast too.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's different. Like everyone is just dating at a different rate.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you were his girlfriend like 2 weeks after talking, then I think that 2 weeks after meeting somebody, then yeah, that seems like a good time.
Right. So I told him at 2 weeks that I was divorced. But I did not tell him twice.
Oh, and did you tell him 6 months ago?
She's left that little part out. Yeah.
I wasn't ready. But I really had to work up the courage to tell him. So whenever that finally happened, I think it was really just like another like week later. But for that week, man, I was shizzing bricks. Like I was like, if I tell him, is he gonna think that I am the problem? Because I think everyone says, oh, it was the other person's fault, you know, but like, if I have 2 divorces under my belt, does that mean that I'm the problem? Is that what's gonna look like? Like,
yeah. Did you ever have like a boyfriend or somebody you were dating pass that judgment on you, and that's why you were?
No, but I also don't think anyone's gonna communicate that. Like,
they're like, hey, by the way,
are you?
I think you're the problem.
Yeah.
Or no, maybe not communicate it, but like, you know, you tell them this and then they back off, like, and they are like, oh, actually, you know, this isn't gonna work out. Have you ever ran into that situation?
Well, Brandon was the first guy I ever told I was twice divorced to.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I never had a boyfriend that I dated like after the second divorce.
Yeah.
it took me a while to like feel ready to date again after that. So then, guys, like literally whenever I told Brandon about the second divorce, I remember we were sitting on the couch in the Scottsdale house I had with my roommates, and I was like, Brandon, I need to tell you something. And it was getting late, and it was like a work day, so we both had work the next morning, and he lived here, so like 45 minutes away from Fountain Hills. And I was like, all right, it's getting late, I need to tell him, I need to spit it out. And it took me like an hour and a half. I kid you not. After I was like, Brandon, I need to tell you something, to like actually spit it out. And he's like, okay, what is it? And I'm like, I can't. Like,
is he like guessing stuff? Like the worst thing?
No, he wasn't.
No, he wasn't.
But I do remember like finally being like, what do you think it is?
Yeah.
He's like,
we're just girls, y'all. We are just girls.
What do you
That's
think?
exactly what I would have done.
Can you guess? I'm just gonna take a guess.
I'll say yay or nay.
Yeah. It's like, what the heck?
Do you have an OnlyFans account?
Yeah.
Like, you look like
What could
crazy
it be? Yeah.
It was so funny. I
I'm
don't
dead.
even remember what he guessed. It was nothing like, I don't even remember. But finally I told him, and he is just so patient and so wonderful. I think it was finally like 2 a.m. by the time I spit it out. And he was just like, okay, like, yeah, I'm not gonna judge you. And you know how Brandon is. He's just the best hearted person. But like, if we had him in here right now, you know, maybe he would say like, is she the problem?
Like
Like
his real thoughts.
Yeah, like what were his real
like his
thoughts?
candid thoughts. Of
Yeah.
Like, okay, like, you know, I didn't know this information, but now I do. Like, does this change things? But also at that point, he probably knew your character and who you are as a person. So I'm not surprised that he was understanding of like,
Yeah.
just your history.
Yeah, he loved me at that point. And okay, now I'm remembering. That was like the point where I was like, okay, I need to tell him the full truth, because he told me he loved me, and I was like, oh crap, like I owe him the full truth of who I am.
Yeah.
So, and I was like, I just can't bear to like see him another day, or like let more days go on with him falling more in love with me, not knowing the full truth about me. It sounds like I freaking killed a person.
Now I'm like, girl, you need to give yourself some grace or something.
Yeah.
Just now, the phrasing, you're like, oh, I need to tell him who I am. Girl, you being a divorce
Okay,
person.
but Kaylin, like, I told you literally, like, earlier this year.
Yeah.
Like, it is, seriously, it's been, like, my biggest
Yeah, I can understand
source
that.
of shame.
Yeah.
So, maybe other people don't understand it, but, like, I haven't had this conversation with a lot of people that I consider myself close to. And, like, it is because I feel like that sense of, like, at the very worst, it's, oh, she's, you know, the problem. I bet she did X, Y, and Z, such bad things in the marriage. But at the very best, it's like, oh, you know, she is dumb. Like, why would she get into a marriage twice? Like, that wasn't going to work out. Like, you know, selective process is not there within this girl. You know what I mean? So, like, that's kind of, like, why I was like, you know, at the worst, they think I'm a bad person. But at the best, they think I'm just, like, I don't, you know, marriage is, you know, not something to consider and take too seriously. So those are the thoughts in my head.
No, I understand. And Natalie, I'm sure you experienced that like fear of judgment, or like, oh, what are people going to think of me, especially in the dating pool? We'll get into that, girl.
Ugh.
But I do want to touch on, like, I mean, like she said, like she told me 6 months ago, I didn't think any of those things.
Really?
If anything, yeah, my mind went to, oh, like how we talked about seeing a picture more clearly. I just saw you more clearly. Not that that is your identity, but it just provided me more context of why you do certain things, or why you think the way you do, like certain opinions you have. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that makes so much more sense. Like, because that's her experience, but it's not who you are as a person. It's just something you've been through. And if anything, and this is what I'm hoping this episode will do for people, is giving people more confidence to maybe work up the courage and like have a tough conversation with either their person that they, you know, to figure their stuff out or something, or even tell their story, or even confront the shamers and be like, listen, this is how you're making me feel, and it is what it is. I can't undo the past. Like, it is what it is. Yeah. And just have a more you know, candid conversation about it, because it's not something that you shouldn't feel shame over. It's like only you guys have the power to tell your story. Yeah. So yeah. But honestly, it did not change my opinion of you. I don't look at you any different. If anything, it just provides me more context into, oh, this is how she ticks.
Yeah.
Not, oh, this is how Lori is. Like, she's XYZ. No. I know who you are and your character.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love you.
I love you.
Yeah, I feel like kind of similar experience. I feel like, I don't know if you guys ever experienced this, like growing up, that you'd be like, well, one, I would never get divorced, but two, like I would never date somebody that has been divorced. Like that was always something that I thought. So like once I got divorced, I was like, oh my God, like that's what people are going to think about me. No, quite literally. The universe said,
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
But, I'm weak.
Humbled.
Humbled for sure. But I think that was my fear, was that like people were already like canceling me out before even like giving me a chance.
Yeah.
So I feel like a lot of the times, like when I did start dating, just even casually, like I did wait as long as possible. But I think as time went on, I was like, you know what? Like there is nothing I can do to change about this. Like it is part of who I am. So if somebody is put off by that, which is fine, everybody is entitled to their own opinion. But it's like, if that's what it is, then like they're not the person for me, because like I can't, there's literally nothing I can do. Like that is part of my story. So if somebody has an issue with that, then that's it, you know, and best of luck to you. And I'm going to continue on my journey and find my person, you know, but it was definitely something that took me a long time to like come to terms with, because I literally, there was so much shame. Like I feel like anytime I said it, I'd be like, yeah, like I'm divorced, like, you know, just be like, you don't really want to bring it up, and or you like,
yeah, you feel like
say
2 inches
in
tall,
a really like meek and mild way that you're just like, it's like it felt shameful to say out loud. So I think, but it was like the more you say it and the more you like come to terms with it, then it was kind of like, okay, like yeah, like this is it, like that is me, and I've been through that. But I think it took a lot of like self growth and discovery to get to that point, because the person I was like at the end of it, like by the time I got divorced and then, you know, the years after, is not the same person that I was when I was even in the marriage or when we separated. So I think all of that was just like necessary for me to get to where I am today. 100%. And I don't feel shameful about it, because I think in a weird way, maybe not even weird, but the things that I learned from that are allowing me to show up in my relationship the way I am today. So
that's awesome.
But that really did take some time. Like it really took time, and a lot of therapy.
Yeah.
Amen, girl.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so I hear you and I feel you on the shamefulness of it, but kind of like, it's nice to kind of hear you say that, you know, that didn't change the way you view her, because I think that was also kind of my experience. Like one time I was out on like a date with someone and who was also divorced. And I said that, you know, I was like, I feel like shame about her. I feel like people are judging me. And he was just like, I can't relate to that at all. Or like, I don't like I haven't experienced that, or like no one has ever made me feel that way. And that just kind of made me think, I'm like, has anyone ever made me feel that way? Or is this just my own
perception
thing
in your head?
Which is, I feel like really is what helped me get to that turning point. Cause I was just like, no one has ever had a weird reaction to it, or if they did, it was internal and I didn't know about it. But like that
was your own belief. You were judging you. That like, you were the only one judging you. I was almost
pushing that on people, that it was like an issue, you know. But in reality, like I never, luckily, never experienced anybody that was like, oh, you know, whatever. Like I said, at least to my face.
Yeah.
But
for sure.
Yeah. So I feel like once I was like, okay, like maybe I need to change my own narrative, so that people don't, you know, I'm not putting that on other people, because that's not the experience that people are having with me. So that was, I don't know, that was a turning point for me, I think.
Yeah.
Love that.
I loved how you brought up how you were on a date with a guy who was also divorced. Do you think dating as a woman being divorced and as a man being divorced is kind of different? Like, have you guys ever...
I mean, unfortunately, yeah, I feel like it is, but like, I don't know that I have a specific response as to why.
Yeah, I wonder why that is. Like, I mean, I think there is a difference.
Yeah.
But I'm like, why?
But why? Yeah.
But in what way? With
Like,
in your mind?
I feel like
I have an
women,
answer, but-
Yeah, I feel like women don't really care if a man's divorced.
Yeah.
But maybe a man would care if a woman is divorced.
In my mind,
Like a double standard almost.
Okay, I've never reflected on this thought, so it's
Me either. This is
interesting.
real time.
This
y'all.
is
We're in
new,
lab.
this is new
We love
information.
it.
So just being very honest, like, and this is probably something that I need to like change because I don't. Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think it's healthy. I feel the opposite, actually. I feel like if a girl says that she's divorced, I'm automatically like, oh, well, she was probably the victim in the marriage. Whereas if it was a man that says he's divorced, I'm like, you were the problem. I'm
Okay.
just being honest.
Yeah.
Like, and like not. I feel like you have to ask. Like, everyone
Yeah.
has a different story, and that's not always the rule, and there are exceptions to the rule, but in general, I feel like, and again, maybe I'm biased because I'm divorced, but I feel like in general, if there is a divorce, it's probably because of the guy. Like, I don't know.
That's a hot take.
That's a hot take.
Hot
And
take,
it's
ladies and gents.
not- and I'm sure it's not healthy, but
No, I feel you. I mean, I have so much to say what you just said, but maybe I'll reel it in.
I'm weak.
I do. Wait. Okay, Natalie, you did touch on, you're like, oh, I used to think when I was single that I'll never date a divorced person.
Yeah.
I guess maybe think back to, do you have like reasonings why?
Yeah, I think just from not, I mean, at the time, really having like relationship experience or like ever being married or whatever, you have this idea that it's like, oh, if a man is like divorced and it's like, he must have done something wrong or like damaged goods, like, yeah, there must be something wrong with him. But I think kind of like on the flip side of what you were saying is that I think where I'm at now when I hear that people are divorced, now I feel like the complete opposite, that I'm just like, maybe they're just two people that weren't meant to be together, because like that was my experience. Like, yes, I did things wrong. Yes, he did things wrong. But at the end of the day, like, we're not bad people. We just weren't right for each other.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So I think that has kind of shifted my focus on like how I view it as well, that it's just like, it's really not this big thing. And I don't know if that's just because how everybody kind of gets divorced, you know what I mean? It's not like this taboo thing, I feel like, anymore, like what it used to be, or at least what I recall like when I was young. It feels less taboo.
it
But
is.
I don't know.
I
Or,
think
like,
so.
less weighty.
Yeah, that I'm just
Yeah.
like, now it's kind of like everybody.
I feel
so
like
it's like,
it is becoming more of an accepted thing,
Yeah.
because I feel like it's fair and like almost factual to say that older generations, like, that was kind of the way of life where you just
didn't get divorced. Yeah, you just stuck it out no matter what.
And you stay in these, like how you touched on abusive relationships, physical or emotional, or just incompatibility.
Yeah.
Like, hey, there was a time where, maybe we rushed into things or got married for the wrong reasons, whatever
Yeah.
they might have been. And then you grow apart.
Right.
And you realize like, oh, this currently right now is just not it.
100%. Yeah.
The one
There's so
thing
many things
I
to
know
go into.
so many things. The one thing that you did bring
Sorry.
up about how you think it's like the man's fault. Obviously, it just depends on everyone's situation. However, I do think, we've touched on this before, kind of, but having, I guess, a Christian worldview, the man is the head of the house.
Yeah.
And he is, and I think it's in Ephesians 5, like, husbands, love your wives like Christ loved the church. And if that's the role of a husband and he's not doing that, he's not doing his role, then it does affect the whole marriage. It affects the marriage, then the family.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, maybe it's coming from that in a sense of that's kind of the man's responsibility. And if he's not laying down his life for his wife the way God did for the church, I feel like maybe that's kind of what you were touching on, where it's like, it is the man's responsibility to kind of lead the marriage, and we are the helpers as wives.
Yeah.
But that's, I don't know, that's just like a biblical take on
that
it.
was actually one of the things that I was just thinking about, where I'm like, oh, I don't know if we should go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But that was what was in my mind.
Yeah.
Like, and it's so confusing because, like Natalie was saying, like, I think before, whenever we were younger, it was more like black and white. Like, someone did something wrong, like they were the problem, but now it's just more like, no, they just weren't compatible. And
More
like
gray.
and yeah, it is more gray. And that's where I'm at. Like, that's why I say just don't get married young, because you have really high chances of just not being compatible because you don't know who you are yet. Like how heck can you select someone that you're compatible with if you don't even know who you are and what your values are yet? Like, it's just hard to make a solid decision and like give yourself the best chance. But where it's confusing with that is like, if we don't want to say, and I don't think that we should say, like, you know, this was your fault, you're innocent, you know, but also like whenever you are raised going to church, like you believe in things like sin, and you like, it's almost like, do you know what I'm trying to say? I'm having a hard time articulating because I feel like it's sensitive.
Yeah, like I feel like maybe our world, you know, the divorce rate, you know, 50% of marriages work out, 50% don't, whatever. It's a really high rate, whatever. Like you literally have a 50-50 chance of making it.
Yeah.
And I feel like maybe in the church it feels a little bit more taboo because in the Bible, I mean, let's just call it plainly, it says like God hates divorce. Yeah. And also, does he want us to be in marriages where the covenant of marriage is not taken seriously by somebody and they completely neglect you as a partner? I mean, I don't think so.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I that's where I think having grace for everyone's situation and realizing like, okay, their situation, what they're going through, literally only God can judge them. Like, that's really cliche, but it's so true, because only you know your experience and only you know your experience. So, and I love what you said, Natalie, how you said, oh, well, when I was single or not married, and if they told me they were divorced, like you would kind of have like, you know, almost like a flag.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's a red flag. Yeah. But then now that you went through it, you're like, man, I have so much grace for that person because I've been through that too.
Right.
And it's just more understanding of, man, relationships are messy, complicated. Marriage is hard.
Right.
And also, I mean, that's just, again, a part of your story, and you don't go into marriage thinking that.
I don't know. That's a whole other rabbit hole. I wasn't even trying to go down that. But
I see what you're saying, though.
I was just talking about like how people draw conclusions and
like, oh, well, like, you know,
there's like the victim, and then there's the like.
Yeah, it's not never black and white.
Yeah.
So like how you were saying. Well, I guess, how did you guys arrive at the fact that, okay, I am ready to like open up myself up to a relationship? Like, Natalie, you mentioned your boyfriend. Obviously, Lori, you're married to Brandon. After, I guess, the personal growth, the therapy, the healing that you did, what kind of made you realize, like, okay, I think I'm ready to get back out there, for lack of a better term?
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah.
Oof. Okay. So, man. Okay. I feel like after I got divorced, and all of the other trauma things that were happening in my life, I just kind of rebelled. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I feel like I partied a lot, was being promiscuous, if you will.
Yeah.
And I just kind of went through like this phase where I was just like, I'll never get married again. I don't want kids. I don't want this. Like, I'm just going to live my life, whatever, because I think it was too painful to even like deal with that. I was just like, no, I don't want those things like anymore. Like, this changed me, whatever. But as soon as that got old,
and it got old quick.
It got old quick. All it took was one summer. And I said, you know what? This is not
one hot girl summer was enough.
One, you know what? And that's fine. But I think also what's interesting, I guess not that interesting, part of me, because I got married so young and I was married through my whole 20s, part of me was like, I never got to experience this. Like, I'm going to just be like young, wild, and free. Like, so late.
That's real. So many people can relate.
I was living my life like just on my own terms, you know? And
I definitely understand that.
Yeah. But there, I'm like, shout out to Zarin. There were times that we had like, this so embarrassing. We would like go out and I would be like crying in the club because like, first of all, when like you're drinking and stuff, I just feel like emotions are high anyway. But I just, toward the end there of like that summer or whatever, I just remember like saying to myself or like crying in my car on the way home being like, I shouldn't be here. Like, this is not what I want. Like, I've convinced myself that like that I don't care, but like, that's not true. Like, I should be at home with my man, like making dinner, watching a movie. Like, it makes me kind of like emotional. Like, just like thinking about
where you were
that at the time, because man, it's just like and not only that, I feel like it makes me emotional because everything that I wanted in that moment, I'm actually like currently living right now. And just to be like on the other side of it, like a year later, it's just such a blessing. Like, I really didn't think I was ever going to get out of like that path or find my person again, because it was just like, what does that even look like? Like, when you feel certain feelings toward one person and you're like, this is it forever, and then that's gone. I'm like, will I ever feel feelings like this for anybody ever again? Like, and you do. And I think that was like something that was what I realized as I started dating, that I'll never love anybody the way that I loved him because it was him, right? But it's like, I can have an even greater love and a different love for somebody else, and to be able to experience that now, like, and really be on the other side of it. I can't really like put it into word. Like, I don't know. It's really just amazing. Like I said, just like a really big blessing. So I feel like that's where it was for me, that I was just like, this life that I'm trying to pretend like I'm living is not me. This is not what I want.
It's not all it's chalked up to be.
Yeah, it's not at all. Like, it's fun for like 2 seconds, and then you're left just feeling like empty afterward, because
at the
you
end
go
of the day,
home
we
alone.
want to. Yeah, you want to have somewhere you belong.
Yeah. So that was kind of my experience of like how I got back on the path of like what I want out of like a relationship.
Yeah. Do you want marriage?
Hell yeah.
Okay, look at that.
I'm like, yes. I'm
Spring
like,
by spring.
yeah. No, honestly, I'm like, it's something that we talk about like very often. Like, the relationship that I'm in right now is something I've just never experienced before. And I was literally talking to him about this last night, that like, I've never felt so seen, so heard, so loved. And like, we had a rocky start, but man, like, we've really done a full like 180, I feel like, throughout our relationship, and the way that we just show up for each other. And something I think that has really gotten us to that point is that we've started going to church together, and we pray together. Like, I didn't even have that in my own marriage, you know? So like, to have like God and the church be like at the center, and like, we're starting to take like premarital classes at the church, like, so it's like, we're just on that path of creating just a healthy relationship, and it just feels so good. Yeah. So I'm like, we'll definitely be getting married, definitely getting engaged, definitely having kids. Like, we talk about it all the time, and it feels so good to just be able to like live in that truth, that it's like, this is what I want, and that's okay that it didn't work out like the first time or whatever, however many times it was, you know, like that I dated people. But yeah, that was kind of my experience.
That's
or like
awesome.
Current experience.
I'm so happy for you.
Thanks.
Natalie, I'm like a loss for words. I'm like, oh,
Caitlin's looking at
my
me like,
gosh. No, I'm like,
hello?
that is
Yeah.
incredible. That is
thanks.
absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
And it's so cool just watching you just blossom into the woman that you are. Like, oh my gosh. And even you opening up about even diving into your faith more, both individually and then as a couple. Like, that is just so encouraging.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really awesome.
It's interesting too, because I feel like as I was going through all of those things, like, it's sad to say that I feel like I lost my faith. Like, I stopped going to church. I stopped praying, everything.
Yeah.
Like, that was just, and I know that's when you're supposed to lean in the most, you know, when bad things are happening. But I think for me, I was just like so hurt that I was just like, I don't even want to deal with that. So, you know, I completely stepped away. And I think too, it almost hurt to like go to church, because although we weren't like super involved in the church necessarily in like in a praying or like within us as a marriage, but like, he played in the church band, like we went all the time. So it was just like, it hurt to go and like hear the music. So I was like, I can't be here. Like, this is too much. So I had to like just step away. But I'm thankful like for people in my life, like Zarin and my friend Marshana, like, who consistently just stayed by me and were just like, are you praying? Like, are you like through all these things that like, and they just guided me like back to it. So I'm thankful. I didn't even you, Kaylin, like the way that you guys would pray before games and stuff, like it was so inspiring that I was just like, how I want to get back on that path to like, I don't know, just, I don't know, just be back on that path of faith. So like, I'm appreciative to people that brought me back there. And now, like I couldn't ask for anything more now to have a partner, like a life partner that also brings me in closer. It's like there's literally nothing better. So to be able to share that together is like really special.
Wow.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm like,
amazing.
I just word vomited for like
No,
5 minutes.
I love it.
That was
Oh my
awesome.
You guys are
gosh.
like, all right.
No, what a great
No,
story.
I'm being so
No,
serious. I'm
seriously.
like so enthralled because I'm like, wow. Because I mean, obviously, I was with you through all those stages.
Yeah.
Like, man, as us again ending our last season together, us going through what you were going through together.
Yeah.
Like we were going out too.
Listen,
like I've been.
we were
through
having
it,
a time.
y'all. Yeah. Like I understand.
Yeah.
And obviously I couldn't understand exactly what you were going through, but
Yeah.
I could see just the ups and the downs.
Totally.
And just now seeing you on a high, I'm just like, yes, like
Yeah.
I'm just so thankful.
I love
Thank
seeing your
you.
pictures on
Yeah.
Instagram
Yeah,
and your
you're
stories.
just
You
so
guys are
happy.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. Yeah. Honestly, it's just like something we even say it all the time. It's just like every day it just gets better and better and better. So it's like again, I've never experienced this level of just like peace. Like we're just like so at peace with each other. Like it just feels so right. And I don't know, I'm curious if you experienced this at all. It's like now I've met somebody, and granted it is moving like fast. Like we've only been together for like almost a year now, but it's like we are already looking at rings and, you know, like talking about marriage, and, you know, people are like, isn't it fast? Or like, you just got divorced. So I'm like, ugh, like that hurts to hear. It
Yeah.
hurts because I'm like,
Definitely.
when you feel like a certain way and you feel something in your heart, and then for somebody to be like, are you sure? Like, or like, you know, just to kind of like second guess that, it's hard and it's hurtful. So it's like, how do you navigate that it's like, it's like, it makes me question myself, because I'm like, can I trust myself? Because I thought I knew then. Do I know now? But then it's like, I try to bring myself back to like some kind of reality of like how different of experience this is for me. And now I'm older and I know what I want in a partner and what I want my life to look like. It's like I'm actually thinking about those things where I maybe wasn't when I was 20. So I'm curious if you experienced that at all, like when you got married again, like that, if somebody was ever like, really?
100%.
Again? Yeah.
I completely know what you're talking about. So my answer to that is like, and yes. Oh my gosh. Do you remember when Brandon and I got engaged?
Dude, so much judgment on people that don't even.
Right. People. Yeah.
Yeah, no, because we were working together, and like obviously I come in there. Honestly, I walked in there like, hey, guys, I'm engaged. Like,
No, she literally comes to my office and she's like, so something happened this weekend, and she can freaking puts her hand out. And I'm like,
and it was after like we
what?
had been talking for like probably 40 minutes, and I'm like, okay,
Oh,
well,
yeah.
and we like wrapped up
by
this
the way.
conversation.
So by the way.
No,
it was
literally.
literally a by the way.
I was like, excuse me.
Yeah.
Park it right here.
Oh
and
my
I knew it
gosh.
was coming too. It wasn't a surprise, but I was like, oh my gosh, yeah. Like this makes sense.
Yeah.
But also people
Oh my
had their opinions.
Oh, absolutely.
Listen, yeah.
And because when we got engaged, people were like, okay, fine, you're engaged. Like, when are you getting married? And I'm like, in February, which was 2 months out from that point. And they're like, this February? And
my
I'm like,
gosh.
yes,
Yeah.
this February. But we're past all that now. But like, and I understand what you're talking about, like questioning yourself, like, should I trust
I know
myself?
what's right? Yeah.
Yeah. So Natalie, like one thing about whenever Brandon and I got married, like marrying Brandon was absolutely the right decision. Like he is my life partner. I know that, like I know anything. I'm so sure about it.
Yeah.
But on our wedding day, oh my gosh, again, like I was just shizzing bricks, like because I remember driving to the wedding venue, which was Brandon's parents' house in the backyard, and I was with Brandon, and you know, he's just so happy, like it was the happiest day of his life, and I could see that on his face. But on my face, I was so scared. I was crying. I was like, and not for like good reasons, like I was scared. And but that was really just like on our wedding day. Like when I got engaged to Brandon, I knew that he was the right one, and like it puts new perspective to like when you know, like people would always say that. And so that's the difference, like for me, like that's how I knew Brandon was like, you know, the one. Because whenever I was with those other guys and like getting engaged and like, or dating and then getting engaged again, like I was like, you know, I just was thinking about what people say. Like they're like, you know, like if it feels right, if you're happy, you know, relationships have ups and downs, but if you're happy with them, like then it's right. And so like that back then, like I never had experienced right, you know? And so I was like, I think I'm happy. Yeah. I think that this is right. You know, I think so. But having gone down the wrong path, like it showed me the juxtaposition of what the right path really feels like. And so with Brandon, I was like, no, like this feels different. Like I finally know what it is to just like to know. And like whenever it's right, you know, like and it didn't matter if we got married after 3 weeks or after 3 years. Like I know like ever since like we walked into each other's life, like there's no walking out. So yeah, but yeah, I know like the roller coaster, like, oh, but am I sure? Like, you know, like what if I am wrong? But at this point, further on down the road, even though I was scared on my wedding day, like I don't know, like I know that was the right thing for me. And now I know what right feels like, as opposed to back whenever I was 19 and then 21 again, like trying again. There is the difference. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, for sure. Yeah, you absolutely did. And I think that's what I've been trying to like lean on, is like when I do hear these things, I'm like, no, like I know, like nobody knows what's going on here but he and I. So it's like, and we both feel the same way. So I'm like, I can't let these outside perspectives or opinions like get in the way of that. So, you know, it's like if it feels right in my heart, which it does, and it's like I'm going to lean on that, because at this point I was like, I cannot imagine my life without him and his support and being like his partner and him being mine. Like we just have each other's back, and it's yeah. So I know exactly what you mean.
Right. And I think that like a good way to try to illustrate what that feels like, the difference is like it just feels light. And like as opposed to like with the other guys and like the other marriage or relationships, it felt like I loved them and like they made me happy, and you know I didn't want to let them go, but there was nothing light about those relationships. Everything was a struggle love. It was hard. And that's how I know the difference with it being right now with Brandon, is because there's never been like a heavy season. Like it, you know, yeah, we get into little tiffs here and there, but it's nothing heavy. Like it's nothing that's just like that makes you feel like there's something wrong with you, or whenever you know that something is right, it has to feel light. Like
for sure. Yeah.
I love it.
Alrighty, love.
Yeah. Well, that was amazing.
Little powwow. Yeah.
Again, I'm so proud of you both for sharing your stories. Wonderful. I know, again, it's not easy, but wow. Yeah. I feel encouraged, and I'm like, wow, that's just so amazing. So thank you both.
Yeah, thanks.
Alrighty, and until next time, you guys.
Bye guys.
Bye.
See ya.